Hey, what's going on, guys? Room Gaming here, back with another video. In today's episode, I wanted to go over the difference between towns and cities. So we have towns, we have cities, and we also have something called settlements in Civ 7. And settlements is just kind of a catch-all term for both cities and towns. So if we do say settlements throughout the video, just know that we're referring to something that's either a city or a town. So let's first start with our capital. So by default, when you start the game, your capital is going to be a city. So cities in Civ 7 are basically the major hubs, and they're going to be able to produce units, buildings, projects, wonders, etc. So by default, your capital will always be a city, so you don't have to worry about that. However, when you do go to settle your next settlement, it will actually be turned into a town first, and then you'll have to convert it from a town to a city. So there's nothing really special going on with cities. It's just like they've always been in Civ. You can make units, buildings, all that good stuff. However, towns are something new. So let me show you an example of a town here. So this town was actually a city-state that we did convert into our empire through influence. So we did that here, and then we also did that up here with Babylon. So that is just a little tip, is that if you do have some city-states around you, you can influence them to join your empire. So if we click into it, we can see that we have something called a town focus. So town focus becomes enabled at 7 or higher population. And the bad thing about towns is they can't actually build anything on their own. And more than anything, they kind of work as hubs to your cities, and they kind of funnel resources into your main hubs. So going back to focus, what the heck is a focus? So if we click into it, we can see increases towns growth by 50%. And then all of our town's production is then converted into gold. So basically our town is growing from turn to turn, 50% faster than its normal rate. And then all the production tiles that we have and we have improvements on is going to get converted into gold that we can spend. So the whole idea of towns is to basically boost your main cities. Now, we do have a town here, and we can actually convert this into a city. Now, there's a couple things that relate to this price here. So there's two things. The first factor is going to be how many cities that you already have in your empire. The more cities that you have, the more gold it's going to cost. And then also the bigger towns are also a little bit cheaper to convert than smaller towns. So as you play through the game, you'll see this price fluctuate a whole bunch. The cheapest town that I've converted to a city so far has been 150 gold. So it's typically best to just kind of let your towns kind of gradually move into that city phase. And when the price gets really cheap, go ahead and convert them. And that's kind of the game telling you, hey, this town has grown large enough to kind of be its own standalone city. Now, going back to focus here. So we can actually change this to something else. So for example, we could turn this into a fishing town. If we read this out, all the town's production is converted into gold, and all the town's food is sent to connected cities. So like we said earlier, you can see that this focus comes online at a population of 7 or more. And then the growing town actually starts at any city population level. So it would be ideal for us to come in here and now set a focus for this town, which I've actually not done yet. So it's actually good that we're doing the video. I can come in here and set one of these and show you what that looks like. So let's just take two basic examples here, mining town versus fishing town. Which one would we want for this specific settlement that we have here? So if we kind of look around, we have most improvements on food or fishing. We don't have any mines set up. So for the purposes of this town, it would probably make most sense to do fishing towns because we get that +2 food on all those improvements. We don't have any mines set up, so it doesn't make sense to turn this into a mining town. So this allows you to kind of specialize based on the terrain that is around that specific settlement, and you can turn whatever those base yields are into more gold for your empire. So just for the purpose of this video, let's turn it into a fishing town, and we'll see this pop up. So it says, okay, your town's focus is exclusive. You will only be able to choose this focus or growing town until the next age. So whatever focus that we pick, we are stuck with for the remainder of this age. So it's very important that you're picking the correct one for that settlement. So we'll go ahead and press OK here. And we can see now our focus has changed to fishing town. Now, I've read a couple different topics online. I'm not sure what the best answer is, but I've read online that you typically want about 35 to 50% to be cities and everything else to be towns. And the idea behind that is to have all these small towns sort of supercharging your main hubs and your main cities. So you're kind of feeding them resources. And typically in this game, at least in terms of quarters and districts, it's better to have a few really good tiles rather than a whole bunch of subpar tiles. And I'm assuming it goes the same way for cities as well. It's better to have 3 or 4 really good cities rather than 7 or 8 subpar cities. So my current setup right now is I have 4 cities and then I have 3 towns, and I'm looking to get my 4th town, so I'm going for that sort of 50-50 setup. So let's just again very quickly go through the different resources here that this specific town is making for us. So again, all the food that's generated from this town is sent to our cities to help them grow. All of our production is actually going to be sent as gold to all of our other different cities. And then everything else should apply as normal, generates happiness for your empire. We have gold, we have science, culture, and then influence. Now, let's take this a step further. So let's say that we want to know how much food is actually being sent to these cities, right? We have all these towns collected. What are they actually giving to them? Well, that's actually going to be buried in the city details. So if we go to Thera here and this little list looking icon, you can press that and that will bring up your city details. Now from here, we can see that we have food per turn. So we can actually expand that. Yeah, it's this tab here, yields breakdown. You could go into the food tab and then we could go to the income and we can see that we're getting 12.3 food per turn from a connected town. And I could be wrong here, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I believe it works is one town will supply one city. So if we come into our capital here, we can go to the list, we can go over to our food yields, and we can see that under income, we're not getting any yields from any sort of connected towns. However, in all of our other 3 cities, we are. So I believe the way it works is one town is connected to one city. I could be wrong on that, but the way it's working for me is I have 3 towns and 4 cities, and only 3 of those cities are actually getting income, food income from the towns. Now, another reason that this is pretty good game design is because you're not having to micromanage 7 cities, right? You have 3 different towns that you don't have to manage any sort of production in at all. So each turn, there's less things that you have to manage and click. And in this specific example, right, we only have 7 total settlements. However, as the game progresses, especially if you're doing something like a domination victory, you're going to be running into, 15, 20 different settlements. And if you're having to go in every single turn and manage 20 different cities, it can get very overwhelming very quick. So I do like this game design. Now, you have your main hubs that you have to manage, and then those towns just kind of run automatically for you. And another thing that I want to highlight is this city is no longer growing anymore, or excuse me, this town is no longer growing anymore. So Babylon over here, it's a growing city. Its population will continue to increase. However, this specific town, its population is now completely stagnant, and all of its food proceeds are now going to its connected cities. Now, one thing that I have done a little bit of research on is when's the best time to convert a town to a city? Seems like the general consensus that I've read online is you typically want your towns to be somewhere in between 7 to 10 population. And you want to make sure that you're keeping that sort of 50-50 or that 1-to-1 ratio between towns and cities. That's something that you want to stay consistent throughout most of the game. A lot of people online have been saying that they typically convert to a city as well once they come in here and they buy all the buildings that they can and there's nothing else for them to purchase. But overall, I think it's really up to the player. There is no general consensus. It depends if you're really wanting to push science, if you're really wanting to push culture, and you think that you need an additional bump there. You feel like your cities have grown enough, your main cities have grown enough, and you're looking to expand your empire a little bit more. Again, wanting to focus on other things outside of production and food, then maybe it makes sense to convert. So in my opinion, when expanding becomes less of a concern and you really wanted to hone in on that one specific victory condition, that's probably when it's going to be a good time to convert for you. Another thing that I completely glossed over, I meant to mention this earlier, whenever you do age up, so whenever you go to, just say, for example, the Antiquity Age, the Exploration Age, all of your cities will be converted into towns. So you will have to go back in and actually buy those towns back and do that conversion. You'll have to pay the gold for the conversion. Now, originally, I thought this was a terrible thing. However, I went to the Exploration Age in this specific game. These cities here, Thera, Argos, and Knossos here, excuse me, I think it's actually pronounced Gnosis. These were all actually pretty cheap for me to convert. I think each of these was like 200 gold for me to convert back, which is nothing. But if you come up to like Toledo, for example, it's a very small city. You see it's 670 gold. Babylon is a little bit bigger, 670 gold. So these two are still very expensive, but my biggest town is only 611 gold to convert. And I'm assuming that has to do with the population differences between the three. So yeah, just something to be aware of when you do age up. Again, everything gets converted back to towns except for your capital. So that will kind of throw you off. However, it's really not too bad to get those back. One thing that is annoying though to me is when you do age up, you do lose a lot of your previous age units and they are replaced. And I believe the way it works is they put a specific unit in every town and city for that age. So I went to the exploration age here and I got like a swordsman in pretty much every single city. But I will say this, if you do have an army commander and if you do put units with the army commander, you will actually not lose those when you go to the next age. So if you're in a big attack and you are about to age up, put everything that you can with that army commander and everything should stay in between the ages. Anyways, I'm ranting at this point. That's going to be the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, if you learned something, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you guys in the next one.